Hey, how you doing? This is Adam Post, publisher of more than 1,000 comic books and also somebody who's been covering all of the aspects of all the dealings at Disney quite carefully. There was a panic over at Disney. They fired Bob Chapek. They put back in Bob Iger. Bob Iger has recently announced that they're going to stay woke. I gave multiple reasons and explained in good detail, factual reasons for why Bob Chapek really did actually have to be fired. Maybe he was a good guy, maybe he went well, but he really did have to go. But today's article is talking about a couple of major deals that Disney might actually go through with over the next couple of years. This is what I think. I think at least one of these deals is going to take place. I will tell you which one at the end, but we're going to have to go through all five of them because it's very important. You need to know what's going on with Disney from a corporate mergers and acquisitions standpoint. I'm going to tell you, Adam Post, what's going down. Before we get into the article, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, click the bell for notifications, give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate you guys. The channel has been growing. It's all thanks to you. In The Hollywood Reporter, Bob Iger's Disney return, 5 far-fetched, or are they, Megadeal scenario. I actually don't think any of the 5 of these are far-fetched because when you go to Bob Iger, he's a deal maker. He's not really a manager. He acquires things. Fox was way too expensive at $71 billion. But generally, he's acquired first-class brands. He's leveraged Disney. He gets people excited. He gets people enthusiastic. He tells creative people that they're incredible. They all love it, and that's all fine. But when it comes to tough managerial decisions, he really doesn't have a lot of expertise with that. And tell me if I'm wrong in the comments below if you have some experience that you know of Bob Iger with great managerial experience, or if you know of experience of him handling layoffs like he's going to have to deal with. You know, it's one thing to buy Marvel, it's one thing to buy Star Wars, but as time goes on, you actually do have to manage those things. And when they start to go a little off the rails, as Star Wars' film franchise certainly has, as Star Wars, even the TV that they're doing for Disney Plus has gone off the rails, things need to get managed. Solutions need to come to bear. While he may be waving away any deal talk, definitely Bob Iger is, he's been saying, no, we're not going to get acquired by Apple, we're not going to buy any major companies, we're not selling the company. Of course, he just started with them again. The incoming CEO built the company with a slew of splashy buys, Pixar, Marvel, Lucasfilm, 21st Century Fox, and could have another big idea up his sleeve. The thing I've really been impressed with about Bob Iger generally is that he does seem to respect creatives that are at the top of companies. So he'll support them, he'll give them energy. Sometimes they're the wrong people, like certainly Kathleen Kennedy, and unfortunately now also Kevin Feige. Again, I often say, I don't even know who's in charge of Pixar anymore. When Lasseter left, that was the end of Pixar, unfortunately. He does seem to give people like the energy they need to operate. They still need to be profitable. Since November 21st, when Disney revealed the shocking return of Bob Iger as CEO and the ouster of chosen successor Bob Chapek from the role, the informed speculation rumor mill about the future of the Burbank-based entertainment giant has been in overdrive. And I've done it too. I've mentioned how I think there'd be a good deal to be made with Apple for Apple acquiring Disney. You know, a lot of people have said, hey, it's crazy, it would never happen. So at the town hall, though, of course, Bob Iger did tell people, look, and there's no deals that are happening. It's all speculation. It is all speculation. This would be a very early talk. But there's nothing wrong with speculating. First, things get speculated, and then some of those speculations become true. Disney selling to Apple. Why it makes sense. And I like the structure of this article, and that's why I'm bringing it to you. Why it makes sense, and the counter-argument of why it doesn't make sense. Does Adam Post know it all? No, I know some stuff. I'll give you my 2 cents. Why it makes sense. Disney Plus is growing fast, but that's been costly. Apple offers a quick fix with troves of cash to fuel Disney's streaming ambitions. Disney would also gain access to more than 1 billion Apple devices where its content would be integrated and boosted. This is the crucial element. Disney has cash. They're not running out of money. They have $11.6 billion right now. They have $50 billion in debt. It's not that much debt because it's to be paid off over time. Disney has no problem raising money. Apple has cash. The key thing is this, the ability to add the distribution. There's, of course, some existing subscribers of Disney Plus that are crossover with Apple iPhone holders, but I mean, come on. Obviously, there are a lot of people that Apple could distribute additional content to of Disney's any and all of their brands and really help them justify all of their expenses. So this is such a good deal potentially because the distribution would give them extra revenue. You really can't deny it. In return, the tech giant would acquire Hollywood's biggest brand to complement Apple TV, which has struggled to feature enough original content to compete. But Apple TV, as I can show you from the market share, is not doing all that badly. Apple TV, well, this is from quarter 1, but now they're at 7%. Disney Plus is at here 13%. They're up actually at 15%. Apple TV is not doing badly. Apple TV Plus, if you think about it, like who even thinks about Apple TV Plus? But if you added Disney Plus to it, it would be a substantial piece of business. Plus, Iger has close ties to Apple, sitting on the company's board from 2011 to 2019. He was on the board for 8 years. He noted in his autobiography, I believe that if Steve Jobs were still alive, we would have combined our companies or at least discussed the possibility very seriously. This was in 2019, and his book is very interesting, Ride of a Lifetime. You might want to check it out. It's been seriously contemplated by Iger before. I've read in motleyfool.com, someone shared a great article to me from there, a great finance website. Even though their stock's around $175, $200 million, the market value of Disney right now, it's been higher recently. So a buyout price for Disney would really be in the $300 billion range. Apple is a $2.4 trillion company. Yes, they could acquire a $300 billion company, but it is a big piece to swallow. Now, why it doesn't make sense? Maybe it could make sense, but despite Department of Justice saber-rattling, it's up in the air whether a sale to Apple would violate antitrust law, as Apple TV Plus accounts for a minor share of the streaming market. If there was interest in a deal, the two sides could choose to bide their time until possibly better regulatory environment. So if Republicans came in, Republicans tend to be easier going, they might let a deal go through. Other than the regulatory issue, obviously Apple can use its money in a lot of different ways, but at the same time, having proprietary content and all these brands, I don't think Apple would necessarily change them for the better, unfortunately, but having control of all these brands, it does make all of the platforms and everything that Apple's trying to do even more significant perpetually. It doesn't hurt them to make an acquisition like that. Disney's selling Hulu to Comcast. This is very likely. To me, this is probably the most likely deal on the list, at least so far. We're only on the second deal. Why it makes sense. Hulu would likely command a bidding war and a high sale price from interested parties and help Disney raise some much-needed cash as the company seeks to cut costs. The CEO, Brian Roberts, has already said that he's very interested in Hulu as well. When Iger was at Disney, it wasn't even a question of whether or not Disney would ultimately acquire Hulu, because they acquired Fox in part to be able to get a hold of a large percentage of Hulu and get control of Hulu. But since Chapek has been in charge, it became a lot more questionable. I think ultimately the problem with Hulu is it's sort of hard to make the case for Disney to buy Hulu now and to control Hulu fully now, because they do have Disney Plus. So what the heck do they need with Hulu? They do have a lot of subscribers. Disney Plus has actually got more market share. Disney Plus has 15% of the market share for the domestic US. Hulu does not have a lot of international. They never wound up expanding Hulu much internationally. Hulu has 10% of the market. It makes much more sense, and it's of more value to Comcast, because Comcast only has Peacock Network, which is not working as a streaming service, than it does to Disney to try to keep it and then integrate it. Bob Iger is not the greatest of integrators. If it was the Zaslav team from Warner Bros. Discovery, I might say something different. And here's why they say it doesn't make sense. Disney is already on track to buy out the remainder of Comcast's 33% stake in Hulu by 2024 at a guaranteed sale price that values the streamer at $27.5 billion. It actually values it also at a minimum of $5 billion. It's not in the article, but I happen to know it. Hulu, which has more subscribers than Disney Plus in the US and Canada, attracts more of an adult audience and drives the highest average revenue per user of Disney's streaming portfolio, as Disney's streaming losses have grown to $1.5 billion in the fourth quarter. They're not going to be like that probably ever again. They'll be bad in the first quarter of 2023, but they'll never be as bad as $1.5 billion again, because that's just Bob Chapek's thing and his strategy completely blowing them. Can they manage Hulu profitably? Right now, supposedly Hulu is not all that profitable. So why would they not take $20 billion? And that's what I think they would get to sell out to Comcast and let Comcast go crazy and have fun with it. Disney's spinning off ESPN. Might they spin off ESPN? Why it makes sense. Disney's in the content ownership business. Marvel, Star Wars, Frozen, Disney owns all of them. But sports, for Disney, sports at ESPN could be considered a rental. It is a rental. Zaslav as well at Warner Bros. Discovery says sports is always a rental business, not something they prefer. And while ESPN generates a ton of cash, Disney's linear networks, including ESPN, had $8.5 billion in profits last year. Linear TV is declining. It's declining tremendously. Linear TV is cable channels and broadcast channels. Disney needs to invest in the future, and the future is not an expensive linear TV channel where all the big rights could be poached by a tech giant in a few years. But I really do not see them selling ESPN. Easily they could sell Hulu, which was never fully integrated with Disney Plus and doesn't even have strong international distribution. But ESPN, they'll never sell. Here's why it doesn't make sense. Okay, let's see what they say, and I'll give you my 2 cents. The world is moving to ad-supported streaming and sports rules advertising. The audiences are larger, people are watching longer, and there are natural ad breaks. If Disney is all in on streaming, sports needs to be part of it. And the cash flow, why not take the profits that funnel them into streaming? And then while there's an allure of sports betting, which is growing fast, Disney may not own the sports, but it does own the ESPN brand, and that brand could be worth a fortune to the right betting partner. They will do some kind of a betting deal with someone, unless Iger feels it's so against the brand image of Disney, which there's just too much. There is so much money in betting and in like online gambling. I can't even tell you how much. Let's just say it's a tremendous, tremendous amount. I think the reason they won't sell ESPN, and they didn't cover it here, is because it's a crucial part of Disney's bundle when they sell streaming. 40% of all their Disney Plus subscriptions are through a bundle that includes Hulu and includes ESPN. The odds of them losing ESPN as an anchor for their streaming service bundle sales and less churn, because first of all, when you buy a bundle that includes those 3 streaming services, you're getting all 3 streaming services for a cheaper price. So people wanting ESPN are able to get these other services for like a little extra upcharge, like do you want fries with that? So it's much cheaper to sell and get additional subscribers for the platforms that they want to sell. Also, for the linear programming, forever, for as long as Disney has controlled ESPN, they have been absolutely killing the cable companies and forcing them to buy extra Disney channels of every brand and kind because they forced a package that includes ESPN. So if they didn't have ESPN, where they could say to the cable networks, listen, mafia style, if you do not give us the money we want on ESPN and take these extra crazy channels, all the Disney channels, the channels that they have multiple, of course, Disney channels and Disney-owned channels. Basically, it's sold as a package. If they didn't have ESPN, they wouldn't have the leverage to do that. They wouldn't even know how to operate if they gave up that leverage. So it will never be sold. Disney buying Roblox or Epic Games. Why it makes sense. Despite its rich intellectual property, Disney hasn't found success with any of its in-house gaming efforts. Remember Disney Interactive, the gaming division that was responsible for $1.41 billion in losses between 2008 and 2013. I mean, that was a big loss back then, but now their losses in streaming are even bigger. Returning CEO Bob Iger even admitted in 2019 that the company isn't particularly good at self-publishing games. Buying an existing popular platform could supercharge Disney's gambling ambitions and drive additional revenues, especially as it seeks expansions into virtual and augmented reality. This is something, I mean, look, they're going to tell you why it doesn't. That's why it would make sense, but it doesn't make sense because they can't manage what they have. They're having a management crisis at Disney. They are changing how they're structuring all of their production and distribution. Bob Chapek tried something with his friend Kareem Daniels. They did have a lot of layoffs as a result. It upset all the creative executives, and it took away profit and loss responsibility from people like running Pixar and all their independent divisions. That was a mess. Bob Iger is putting that back in place where each of the studios have their own profit and loss responsibility, which does make a lot of sense because who are you going to yell at when Strange World fails? You need somebody to yell at. It can't be Kareem Daniels. It can't be one guy. It's got to be the individual studio responsible for moving forward things that don't work. They don't know how to manage very well at Disney. Really, they don't. It's all like, let's let creatives run loose and hope that creatives do good things. Unfortunately, all the creatives seem to want to do woke things these days, and that interferes with good storytelling. That's where Disney's real trouble comes from. Disney merging with Netflix. Why would it make sense? Well, acquiring Netflix would make Disney the undisputed leader in streaming, giving it access to a wider breadth of content and expanding its worldwide footprint. Disney has been growing its international expansion, while Netflix is already in more than 190 countries. By the way, Warner Bros. Discovery is also in more than 190 countries. I think it's something like 210 countries where they have at least 10 different cable channels. Not for their streaming just yet, but they have brand awareness of Discovery in multiple countries. Netflix stock has dropped more than 55% in the past year, which may give it more of an attractive price point. Plus, Netflix CEO Reed Hastings recently signaled his fondness of Iger, tweeting, "I've been hoping Iger would return for president. He is amazing." Disney cannot write a check for Netflix. Netflix is not a cheap company. Their stock is down. So is Disney's stock down. Disney cannot write a check for Netflix. Additionally, Netflix has a market share of 23%, 22% maybe now. They can't do a deal. It would never be permitted that 15% of the market, it says 13%, but it's up to 15% now, and 10% of Hulu, especially if they wind up acquiring all of Hulu, this would never pass antitrust scrutiny, for one thing. And they have too much debt as it is. They couldn't take on something like $150 billion in debt. Maybe there could be some sort of a stock merger collectively that would make sense between Netflix and Disney, sort of the way that Warner Bros. Discovery did with Warner Media independently of Discovery, which was its own separate company. They put it together in two separate companies. But the management of that, Netflix and Disney don't have management to deal with issues like this. So I think it's very unlikely that they might merge with Netflix. I think the most likely thing, and certainly it's not likely they're going to buy Epic Games or Roblox. That's not going to happen. They are not going to spin off ESPN. I think it's extremely likely they sell Hulu to Comcast. Part of the reason why things like this happen is because it's worth so much more to Comcast than it's worth to Disney. But let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Which of these deals do you think is possible? Why don't you think they're possible? If you think that there's anything else that they're missing here that's a big potential deal, or things we don't know yet. But don't you think it's unrealistic? Iger's a deal maker. He makes his money on other people's efforts. The other people who make the deals valuable, who already have special companies, you put 2 and 2 together and you get 6. That's what Iger tries to do. He needs something to happen. But let me know what you think of all this in the comments below. Be sure you are subscribed to the channel. Click the bell for notifications. Give me a thumbs up. And I really do appreciate you guys. I want to thank you again for supporting the channel. I'm getting close to 4,000 subscribers and I'm really excited about that. So thank you again so much for that. I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.